Good evening. Yes? There we go. Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you so much for spending your evening here with us at Bank of America and at Luminary. So this is a very, very special place that we are here today and gathered, and we have with us the founder of Luminary, Kate Luzio, who coincidentally was a Bank of America employee at one time where she started her banking career and worked for different financial institutions until she founded her company. And so, Kate, thank you so much for having us. And I'd love for you to just say a few words about your business and this lovely facility.
Yes, so thank you, Sharon, and thank you, everyone, for coming. I've had a lot of people asking, is this a restaurant? Is this a WeWork? Is this an event space? And it's kind of all of that in one. As Sharon said, I spent almost 20 years in financial services. I'm getting the move over. Okay, so sorry. I'm now in the front. Sorry, ladies. And I know Deepti, so she won't mind. I spent 20 years in financial services and mainly in corporate investment banking. I started my career at Bank of America. I'm also a very proud Bank of America client since I've been 14 years old. And I never left. And I really realized that was a lot of need for investing in women in the pipeline. Whether you were a banker, you were a lawyer, you were a yoga instructor, you were an entrepreneur, and we weren't seeing enough movement for women, whether they were creating their own businesses or certainly into the pipeline of leadership roles. And so at the beginning of last year, I decided to rip the Band-Aid off and started my own company. I'm the founder, CEO, and self-funder of Luminary. And we're a collaboration hub for professional women to network, develop, and connect. We're all focused on advancing, propelling women in whatever role they have in this world. Back to you're a banker, you're a small business owner, you're a yoga instructor, and really advancing women in the workforce and helping to retain women also in the workforce. So we work with individuals, we work with corporates, and we're really proud to say that we've been open 9 months. We have hundreds of individual members, we work with lots of companies, and we're really excited that Bank of America is here tonight talking to all of you. We happen to know two of the amazing women on the panel, and we're really excited to see what Bank of America continues to do in this space and supporting women business owners. So thanks for being here, and enjoy your night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kate. And this is a wonderful facility. So as you checked in at the front table, make sure that you let us know the local charity that you would like us to make a donation to on your behalf. So everyone that came tonight, Bank of America will be making a donation on your behalf. So be sure to do that. And also Deepti Sharma, who is here on our panel and will be one of the panelists introduced in a moment. She's the founder of Food to Eat, has provided the food for this evening. So thank you very much, Deepti. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Liliana Vasquez, who will introduce the panelists, and we'll get into the findings of our report that we just launched today around the state of women business owners and entrepreneurship in the United States. So Liliana?
I have a lot of practice. That was not okay that I messed that up. I hold one of these all day, every day. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited to see some familiar faces. I had the honor of actually moderating this panel last year, and it was such an informative discussion and so incredibly helpful. I think one of the things that people forget is that as a host and a correspondent, I also run my own small business. I've been a small business owner for over a decade. I've been self-employed since I was 24 years old, and the challenges and struggles that I face, I think a lot of small business owners face. So it's interesting to hear all of the different stories, how different we are, but at the same time, how we're all looking for the same kind of information and the same kind of help, and how to lean on each other to gain that insight. So the panel here tonight, I think, will give you a lot of insight into this. So let me introduce, starting here on my left, this is Deepti Sharma. She is the CEO and founder of Food to Eat. And if you have not had a chance to taste the food, please taste it. There are these mini paellas that might be the cutest food I have ever seen. So thank you for providing that. And then, of course, we have Sharon Miller. Sharon, of course, is the head of small business at Bank of America. And then all the way to my left, we have Elizabeth Foster. She is the founder of Maison Visionnaire. And she is also the president of the New York City chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. I'm sure an organization that many of you in this room are eager and excited to be a part of. So let's get started with the discussion. And we know that tonight is a very exciting night because the study comes out tomorrow. We're all eager to see what's changed from last year, what new insights, and what the direction is. So, Sharon, I want you to kind of share some of the top line key findings and keynotes that you're seeing from this year's report.
What we found were that women entrepreneurs they're optimistic about what's happening across the country, and 84% of our respondents told us that they expect their revenue this year to be greater than it was in 2018. So we're already in October. It's a pretty good indicator of the state of business. We know consumer spending is up, and that's a pretty good indicator of what's happening in the local economies. So all in all, I would say very strong across the board with revenue growth, hiring plans, and business expansion.
It's amazing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about growth and expansion. And Elizabeth, I want to kind of start with you because you have an amazing story. You started your business in your home, literally at your kitchen table, which is incredible. And I think that's a story that so many entrepreneurs connect with, right? You start as a side hustle. You're doing it in your spare time. You're working from home because you don't have an office. But you were also able to turn that opportunity and grow it to such a scale that you were actually able to sell that business. And I want to talk a little bit about short-term growth and long-term growth and how entrepreneurs should approach those two stages because there's a different way to see those things. So when it comes to short-term growth, how should entrepreneurs manage themselves around those goals?
So thank you very much. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you, Bank of America and Luminary for being great hosts. Short-term growth is really looking at, you need to understand what there is in front of you. You have to have the goal, number one, and you have to understand what that growth actually even looks like before you can then differentiate the difference between the short and the long. Short-term growth for me was, or certainly is, if we talk about what I'm doing now as opposed to what I was doing, it's really looking at the what I would classify as that short, the low-hanging fruit, really getting that understanding of, okay, what's happening in my neighborhood? Who are the people around me? How can I work with those that are like easily working from that? And then long-term, it's really looking at, it's really having an understanding of what is it, again, going back to that, what is that goal? But it's also looking to that point of working with the, that level of just getting the right structure, the right strategy in order. Sorry, I'm a bit rusty, and it really is working from that point of view to understand what that looks like.
And what were some of the exercises that you used to goal set? And you guys feel free to jump in as well, because I think you need to organize those thoughts for yourself. You can't expect somebody else to do them for you. So what are some of the exercises that you used when you were first starting out to say, okay, this falls into my short term, this falls into my long term, and how do you bridge those two efficiently?
Some of the things that I've done and focused on is always turning to customers. So always turning to the community that you're trying to create a product or service for. A lot of times people forget they're in their heads. They create a problem that they're trying to solve, and it's not the actual problem that is in the community that you think is what you're trying to solve for. So for me, short or long, it's always going back to our customers, right? Food to Eat started off as an online ordering platform for food trucks and carts. And we pivoted into what we do today. We're a B2B model, so we partner with immigrant women, minority-owned restaurants, and we help them book catering jobs at large companies. That's a huge difference from what we were doing when we first started, right? But we always went back to the community and said, what is it that what do you need? What can we build? Because I thought this was what was necessary, is that you needed more online ordering or individuals to order. And they said, you know what's going to actually grow our business, what's going to change the scope of what we do today is catering. And so that's where our pivot really came. So it always comes back to listening to your customers and iterating on the idea. I think you don't have to spend hours upon hours just trying to come up with this idea, but just put something out there, let it manifest in the world, and then come back and iterate on that.
And pivot is something that can be really hard because as an entrepreneur, you've invested so much time, so much sweat equity in something. And then sometimes it's just not working, or you're not seeing the expansion or the growth as quickly as you would like. I always ask this question, and I'm fascinated by this. How do you know when to pivot?
When you're not making enough money to keep growing.
Thank you. And that is the answer that I get at every level, every time I do this. So if you don't make money, pivot.
Yeah.
That is the takeaway.
So for us, it was interesting, and I talk about this. In 2011 is when I started my business, and I raised $500,000, which is
not chump change.
yeah, but it's also not a lot. Unfortunately, like it is a huge amount of money, especially for a kid coming from a lower middle class family that didn't have $500,000 just sitting around. And that took a lot of time to fundraise. So if you think about the numbers today, as optimistic as women are, less than 2% of venture funding is going to women. And then when you put that into perspective of women of color, so black and brown women, it's even less. So and this is like last year and this year. So in 2011, this was 8 years ago, I was getting asked when I was planning on having kids. Which, if you think about it, like I heard a couple of chuckles, that is a very personal question. Like, you don't even ask your friends that. So how is this male investor coming up to me to ask me about my life plans, which have nothing to do with how I run my business? And so for me, I decided to have this pivot because, yes, like we weren't growing fast enough. But also, in order for me to run a consumer business, I would have to raise a ton of venture money. And I just kept getting a ton of no's. And I'm okay with the hustle. I'm okay with the no's. But what I'm not okay with is this like constant like badgering of just like who I am as an individual. And so for me, like I was just like either I figure something else out or I move on to the next thing. And when I figured something else out that instantaneously made us profitable, I continued down that route.
Now, Elizabeth, you are part of NAWBO. And so New York City has everything. I mean, I think we have pretty much everything. So where do you see opportunities for business owners here in New York City?
Well, I see there's many opportunities. One is really to start with the people next to you, the people that are your tribe, the people that you resonate with, the people that will support you and will have your back, basically. So it's really that level of understanding of who are those smart, savvy businesswomen that will resonate with you. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth in many different areas.
Definitely. And I think the road can be bumpy wherever you are, but in New York, it's like extra bumpy. We just deal with a lot more. I know for you, you are a We NYC mentor, correct? So what are some of the unique challenges that you see as a business owner here in New York City?
Well, there's a lot of competition. And so I mainly am dealing with individual restaurant owners that New York has a ton of restaurants, great restaurants. So one of the things that I see is as really important is how do you set yourself, from that competition, and how do you do a better job at storytelling? One of the things that we've done at Food to Eat is we started this campaign. If you were looking at the food, you probably would have seen a photograph that is a picture of a woman holding a sign that said, "I made your food." That is the owner of the restaurant that owns Food Trends, which is the restaurant that we provided the food from today. And the importance of that is a lot of these small business owners don't realize that their stories matter. Their stories are something that people actually want to hear, which is why Bank of America did this report, right? Because they want to hear from the entrepreneurs of New York City and of America and of the world. So for us, we're teaching, and as a mentor, as someone who champions for small businesses, I am always championing for them because we want them to tell their stories. We want them to realize that they too are really important. And so the idea of the I Made Your Food campaign was, how do we humanize food? How do we get people to not just run up and say, "Oh, free food, great," and run away? We want you to look at who was this person that was behind it, and even for a moment that you thought about them and got excited about their food and the fact that, a lot of the times we're eating things out of a box and a machine made our food. Isn't it nice to know that there was this woman or this immigrant or this minority that actually put this meal together and we helped support that business? And so that's what we're trying to do, and that's what I encourage a lot of these small businesses to do, is understand yourself, understand what makes you unique, and use that story to sell your own business.
Definitely. And there's a lot of resources here in the city, obviously Bank of America definitely being one of them. But what are some of the kind of off the book resources that you guys found when you were first starting out that you thought, okay, there's the list and I follow the list and then there's this referral, but what were some of the out of the box resources that are unique to New York City that you guys found?
So for me, I will put this out because she's in the room, but Her Agenda is a great platform that is talking about the stories of other women business owners and specifically on women of color. So resources like Her Agenda, Renisha and I met at an event really randomly. And like I said, there aren't a lot of women of color in this space. And so when you find another one, you run towards them and you're like, how can we work together? How can we help each other? And what can I do to support your business? And so finding founders like that and going to events and hustling to meet people like Renisha was what I was doing. So it wasn't like lists or this and stuff like that, but it was finding women like her who were going to help give me opportunities.
And Sharon, what about at Bank of America? What are some of the resources that women have available to them that maybe they're not thinking of because it's buried or it's not top of mind?
So, I mean, we have a lot of resources for women, and at Bank of America, 40% of our clients in the business owner space are women. And so when you think about the landscape nationally, a third of businesses are owned by women. So we have more, and we like that. We love women entrepreneurs, and we want to support that. We just founded, in fact, I see Jill Calabrese Spain sitting in the front row here, who did a lot of work last year in partnership with Cornell University, our Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship. And so what we found were that there were many women that wanted to know where to get the training, wanted to know how do I access capital, but perhaps we're just too afraid to ask the question. So we put that institute together to help. There are so many our partnership with NAWBO. I think the best source many times is that connection, like you said, in rooms like these, and coming together and saying, how did you do it? And what we found this year in our report, for the first time in 4 years, women were actually more optimistic, had better plans for hiring, for revenue growth than their male counterparts. And I was asked just a little bit earlier, why do you think that is? And I thought about that a lot because I wonder, why is that? Like, why all of a sudden this year women are feeling more confident? And I think that as we see more successful women, business owners that are out there, they're in the field, they're delivering their business and they're connecting, then you can say, hey, I can do that too. I mean, the more we have women in venture capital, the more we have women that support other women, the more I think we feel, wow, that can be me too. And so I feel that is a lot of the change in sentiment, and the more we can support the success of women, the more women are going to be successful. And so that's what we're here to do.
Definitely. Now,
I
yeah,
just
go
want
ahead.
to add to that. The other thing that I always like to say is that don't tell me that I have a nice business. Buy from me and invest in my business, because it's nice to hear, oh my God, that's so nice. You work with immigrants and women and minority owned, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. What are you going to do for me to help my business grow? And that is purchase for me. It's companies like Bank of America that are going to pay for me to come speak, that are going to pay for the food that they buy and not ask me to sponsor it, because sponsorship doesn't make sense for businesses like mine. That restaurant cannot sponsor. So what I expect with every single person here, if you met someone, ask how you can actually support their business, and take action, because besides that, it's all bullshit. Like, these conversations don't take us anywhere. Telling me I'm nice and my business is nice doesn't, right? Like, give me a job at NBC, or like those are the things that like get you, not me.
Okay.
I'm not looking for a job, but I'm saying that
I also have no power. Let's be honest.
But the thing is that you have some sort of influence, right? So if someone comes up to you and is like, I absolutely love what you're doing, well, here are ways that I can help you. Here are ways, like, maybe you can shadow me for a day so that you can make, and like, that's what I mean. I'm not looking for a job. I have way too much going on right now.
I'm on tomorrow at 10. Want to join me?
Oh, yeah.
And I think you touch on something. I think a lot of times I'm naturally shy. Like, I'm an introvert. And a lot of entrepreneurs I meet are naturally shy. They're introverted. So where do you find the confidence to make pointed asks and to not be afraid to have those conversations. Because, like you said, yes, it's great to get the accolades and like it's great that you wrote an article about me. But how do you ask for something, and how do you guys find confidence to advocate for yourself and ultimately for your business?
It's one of the things that I do. I mean, I didn't have this level of confidence at all times, but it was just, I saw other people doing it. I'm like, why not me? I see men who don't even know the person next to them, and they'll just ask them for like business immediately. And I saw like dinners that I was going to where I saw people actually exchanging, mostly men exchanging like business like no other. And I was like, why am I not asking for the same thing? Like, I'm doing a better job at this thing than he is. Like, why does he deserve it? Like, why not me? And so for me, it was just like, I was sick and tired of seeing men, other people taking advantage of situations that I wasn't getting. And so it was just like, if I want like more money, because money is what moves things, then I have to ask for it. And if it says no, then no. I pitch myself for everything, and I get no's a lot of the times, and that's okay. They'll think, at least now they know of me. And so that's where it kind of pushes the needle for myself.
You guys brought up the C word, capital. Every time I think of capital, I always think of like the J-Lo video when she's like dancing and she's like, yo quiero dinero. And I'm like, give it to me. I want my money. I think like in my head that plays when I'm like asking for more money or for a raise or for a deal. Like that just plays in my head because she's like, well, why wouldn't you give that to her? Look at how she's asking. So like, that's what I think of when I hear capital. But I want to take you guys back to the very beginning when you first really made that ask. How did it feel to ask the first time, and briefly tell me a little bit about how that story ended up?
Well, that's a good question. So you can probably tell I'm not a native New Yorker, and yeah, I've only been in this country for 5 years. So when I arrived here, for me, what happened was that I ended up having I went to try and get a credit card. What was shocking actually was that actually my really good credit rating in England did not transfer. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting from zero. So then what happens is I go to the bank and I'm like, can I have a credit card, please? And they're like, no. I'm like, why? I've got a really good credit rate. Yeah, but that was there, that's not here. So it's really that level, and that was the answer that I had from quite a few banks. And I am also a client of Bank of America, and the reason is that because they were the people that actually gave me the credit card. Like, I knocked on various other banks. I'm not going to mention names; it would be unethical to do so. But they said no, and Bank of America said we'll help you. And so I'm like, fine, you stand by me, I'll stand by you. And that's how it worked. So from that level, I then got that. I'm a little different, I guess, because I came from that part of zero. And then, gradually, it built up, my credit rating built up. And now I'm at a point where I can actually go out and I'm taken seriously more than I was before, for sure.
And Sharon, from the banking side, what advice do you have to small business owners that want to partner with Bank of America?
Well, I think it's important that you go before you think you need to go. So before you need to, access capital, you want to get some advice and guidance. You want to sit across the desk from a banker that can help you understand, okay, here's your business, here's your plan, here's where you are in your revenues, this is what it looks like, here's where you may need to pivot. Because there's multiple ways to access capital. It's not always a traditional loan, although Bank of America is the #1 small business lender in the United States. And so we provide more access to capitals to entrepreneurs than any other bank in the country. So we are standing by and for our customers. But I will tell you that it does us no good, and it does your business no good, or the community that you're operating in, to give you a loan and your business fails. So we are on the same side of this with you. And I think it's really, really important that you have the right plan in place, and that can only happen when you seek that advice, that counsel, and that expert that can say, yeah, you probably do need to, get some money to expand, or right now may not be the right, or maybe you need to think about a different model. Those are all the conversations that we're having across the country every day.
Now, tomorrow is the big day. The study's coming out tomorrow, and there were a few items that stood out to me, and I think you're right. I think the general optimism of these women is what really stood out, and the opportunity for growth. And there were two questions that I actually want to ask you guys that you asked of the women in this study. So first question is, what aspect of your background has been most impactful in shaping your success as a business owner?
I think being a first generation immigrant and being brown has been really impactful because I learned from my parents who were immigrants and business owners as soon as they came to this country. I mean, my dad was 18, went to business school here while working 3 jobs, and then eventually started his own businesses. So I think that grit really came from my parents. And so I think about that all the time, as in how am I impacting my community? What am I doing to further my narrative of helping create more opportunities for others? So I think that has probably been the most impactful for me.
Elizabeth?
Actually, I started my other business in London, and London is really a centre of creativity. There's a lot of amazing things that come out of that city. So actually, I think being actually from that city gave me that start with my last business. And also I lived in the south of France, so I have that understanding of what it's like. You know, I went to Grasse, which is the capital of the fragrance world, and did that. And then coming here, I think that it's really, I think that just being an immigrant as well, from that point of view, and really, you know, connecting with my tribe, you know, connecting with NABO really made such a huge difference to me. They're the ones that have helped me every single step of the way with my business.
And then the second question is, what is one societal shift, and there's a lot happening, we're about to be in an election year next year, that will be the most impactful, you think, in shaping the next generation of women business owners? I'm going to start with you, Sharon.
What do I think?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think there's so much happening in today's environment, but to me personally, I think the ability to see someone else's success and to be able to identify and say, you know what, she did it, I can. I think the more success among women entrepreneurs and the more successful businesses that are sustainable, the more impact that's going to have for the next generation, because they can identify, they can see what is possible, and don't limit your beliefs on what is possible, because you got into business to dream big, and so don't limit it. Always stay creative.
I love that. I was going to ask you for a takeaway, but I think that's a good one to end on. They're wrapping me up. But before we go, we do want to open it up to a couple of audience questions. If any of you guys have questions for me or for anyone here on the panel, please raise your hand and we will get you a mic. So any questions from the audience? Did I hear a yes? Oh, yes. Hi.
Hi, my name is Melba Wilson, and I'm the proud owner of Melba's Restaurant in Harlem, where I was born, bred, and buttered. And it is a very exciting time for women entrepreneurs, and we all stand on the shoulders of each other, because after all, we are our sisters' keepers. My question is, do any of you believe that the current political climate has anything to do with women stepping out on our own and coming into our own?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I agree.
The short answer is yes, and a little bit of a longer one is that there's a lot to this. Yeah, well, as women of color, it's something that we've been dealing with our entire lives. This political climate is just different for, and I hope nobody takes this personally, but for white women, because now it's actually affecting them. Because now this president that we have, this administration, is actually impacting people at large. So as a woman of color, I've always felt like I haven't been seen. I've always felt like I walk into a room filled with women, and if I don't see a single woman of color, I get scared. And so yes, this political climate has made a huge impact, because now everyone is waking the fuck up. And I kind of bleep myself out just because of the event that I'm at. But people are waking up because they're realizing if they don't do something, things will not change. There are immigrants in this country. I mean, I have clients where we're doing this campaign, I Made Your Food, and it's to help them and to benefit them. They're scared to do it because they don't want to be known or seen. That's scary. So we're talking about being seen, but there are people in this world that are in this country, in this city, that are legitimately scared. And so, yes, if we don't wake up, if we don't change our tomorrow, or at least for the tomorrow we want to see, then things will continue down this path. So we as women of color need to continue this, like, the struggle that we've been going through. And it seems like we need to help women of all backgrounds and ethnicities to do the same, and tell them that it is important that you make a change. So I'm glad that the women that did get elected into office exist today. Because of them, there are so many things that are actually being brought up into conversation. They're being seen as aggressive. No, they're just in power. When you give women power, they will make moves. And when you make women business owners, when you invest in them, they will make moves. They will change the narrative that exists today for us. So yes, this political climate has everything to do with the way things are happening, and women are waking the fuck up.
Really quick note on that. I think it's also important to give people the permission to ask difficult questions without judgment. And that's one of the things that I encourage all women of color to do with all of their white women sister friends, right? Because if we can't have honest conversations about what it feels like to be a person in a room who doesn't see anybody else that looks like them, or what those challenges have opened, what have done in your life, then you can't grow from it, and you can't help someone if they don't ask for help. So have the difficult conversations, but give people permission to ask questions that maybe don't feel so good when you receive them, but that the answer will take you so much further than the uncomfortableness you felt in that moment. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Got the mic.
Hi, sorry, I wish I could stand, but I'm Camille. I'm with the Brooklyn Women's Business Center. We're located in East New York at the Local Development Corporation of East New York. And my question is, as you mentioned, there's a lot going on in New York, but it seems to happen from downtown Brooklyn and north. How do you get, what's your advice for bringing attention to your community? East New York has just been rezoned. So by Mayor de Blasio, we have a huge opportunity. $267 million has been poured into our community. However, there are local entrepreneurs that we're trying to keep in the community and help them grow their business. So if you could just give some advice on how we can kind of share their stories and bring attention in such a big city where there's so much going on.
Well, from NABO's point of view, we do our best to be as inclusive, and what I mean by that is the boroughs, not anything else. And if that goes, because that's the way it is. And from that point of view, it's really a question of working with as many people as we possibly can to give them that business education, to give them the support, to keep them here. And everything that we do is really to support that woman business owner, wherever she may happen to be in the 5 boroughs, to support her in growing her business.
And we can get connected for you, okay? Have some offside discussion.
Hi, thank you. I am Lenny Colasteves. I'm a small business banker with Bank of America, and I brought 2 of my clients. We have Kiana Aviles and Yvette Perez of Nail Lounge and Vita Essentials. So to piggyback on that, as far as Bank of America, they are investing so much in the small business sector. They are hiring people that look like us, women. They hired my wonderful manager, Natalie Muyal-Peleg, and it makes a big impact because I feel understood. I have leadership. The division head is a female. It empowers me, which in turn empowers my clients. So if Bank of America is doing anything, that's what they're investing in. And also with the Cornell Institute, that's huge, and if they need information, and it's focusing on women. So that's what they're doing, and I see it real time. Also another shout out, is Michael Arena. So they also, you can stand up. He's our new regional executive. And that's another thing that Bank of America is doing because they see that there's a need for more focused attention in their market. So when you say East New York, now when you see higher up, there's more positions, more focused in our market, and that's what's needed. So that's what Bank of America is doing for our community. And thank you. I really appreciate it. I really do. So thank you.
I guess as one of the few men in the room, I will ask, probably for all of us here, but really for all of us, what do you want us to know? What do you want us to do? And even what are the things that we do unconsciously or unknowingly that really need to stop today?
The simplest, because that's such a loaded question, is like what I said earlier, buy from women-owned businesses. Rebecca Minkoff started an organization called Female Founder Collective, which was to start putting a symbol on the doors, on the products of women-owned products, because apparently if women know more about each other's businesses, they will invest more. So as our male counterparts, please look up where you're purchasing from, and make sure that they are women-owned. And if they're not women-owned, investing in something you believe in, a mission.
I would also say that, mentorship and sponsors, and whether you're in corporate America or own your own business, I think it's important that men recognize women and connect with them to help them, and not just in ways that, okay, you need to do this or that, but it's about operating a business, it's about running a P&L, it's about how to do things. I think some of the conversations take place between men that might not take place between a man and a woman. I've had the very good fortune of working with many great male colleagues at Bank of America, but I read a lot of articles in other institutions. It just doesn't happen. And that's why, at Bank of America, we've got 40% of our management team women, 30% of our board of directors women. And so it's not just talking about what are we doing for diversity and inclusion, but it's about bringing our whole self to work that makes a better company. And I think that's that connection too in anything we do. We have to have men and women to support one another.
So I'd just like to follow on with that by just saying, talk to your sons, because that's the next generation. They're the ones that are actually going to be doing the stuff. I mean, we really appreciate all the support that you give us and our businesses, absolutely. But from that level, it's like this conversation needs to be had, and it needs to be had with the younger generation. So really ask that, have those conversations with them so that it stops.
And I will add that I took my son to New York the last time we launched a report, and he's 13 years old. And he came to some interviews that I went, and I pulled him out of school for a day. And the end of that evening, he said, "Mom, who helps the men business owners at Bank of America?" I said, "We do." So you know what? I checked myself too. Talk to your sons. He talked to me. I said, "Okay, we help all people. It's not just women." So I want to make sure that I'm just as inclusive, because we can be the same, the opposite.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa Nunez. I'm a CPA. Just shout out to Melba's. Love your restaurant. I live in the neighborhood. I'm glad that question was asked. My question is similar, but almost on the opposite end. So as a CPA, I work in a very male-focused field. I find myself often at the table with only men. And even I focus in small businesses. Majority of the owners, I'm happy to have a few female-owned businesses as clients, but majority of them are men. So I'm often at a table with just men, and I'm curious, when you find yourselves in that position, do you change the way you act, or how do you get them to treat you the same as they would a fellow man at the table with them, as opposed to a woman in my position?
Men are scared of knowledge and facts.
I find that.
No, honestly, like, I mean, if you've got the numbers, if you got the facts, like, they don't know how to change the conversation because they can't, right? So I always tell everyone, I'm like, just walk into a room with a crazy amount of facts and just blow them at them, and like, they can't do anything. They're like, oh shit, she knows everything. She knows everything she's talking about. So at the end of the day, like, it's just always empower yourself with the right numbers and the right facts. And if you know that you're right, which you probably are, you're a CPA, you have to be. But like, I think that like that changes, and that changes the conversation, right? Then like they respect you instantaneously, and there's no way they can like, change the way they feel about who you are and your knowledge.
And the other thing I would say is actually get a mentor. Get someone who's been through something similar, connect with the right people to support you to have those conversations. Like, I need some help, like, figuring out how this works. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that help.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you, Elizabeth, Sharon, and Deepti. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you for all of you attending. We're so excited that this conversation is happening. I sense so much energy and excitement in this room and a ton of opportunity. I love seeing the diversity in this room. It's incredible to see, and I hope to see more of it in the future. So thank you, Bank of America, for hosting us tonight. And you guys mingle, ask us questions. There's tons of food. Please go eat it. Take a look at who made your food as well. And definitely tweet and share about this event. Thank you so much for being here.